Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start today sitting on our heels towards the back of your mat. And your knees can be together with your heels together if that feels good, or if there's another version of sitting that feels better, you can do that. So when you arrive, you can just relax your shoulders, relax your neck. Take a big cleansing breath. You can inhale through the nose and release it through the mouth. Let yourself ground down through your sit bones and lift up through the crown of the head. Each inhale, the crown of the head reaches a little higher, and each exhale, the sit bones root down a little deeper. And really feel this length growing in your lower back. Just sit however is comfortable. And just focus on each time that you inhale, feeling the spine reach upward, and each time you exhale, feel the spine ground downward. So you can really notice the space between the tailbone and the very tip of your head. Let your collarbones and heart be broad. Relax your jaw. Relax the forehead. And send your breath really deep into the belly. And as you exhale, releasing the belly. And take 5 breaths where you're really focusing on filling up your belly as big as it can get and letting it go. Always an option to let the breaths be audible, because when we can hear our own exhales and our own breath, it just communicates to the body on another level that this is time to relax. Also, one more big breath. And then starting to activate your Ujjayi breath, inhaling and exhaling through the nose with that restriction in the back of your throat, as if you're fogging up a mirror, but with the mouth closed. And now we'll start to roll out the torso. So you can start the circles small. You can envision bringing your rib cage forward and around, and then bringing the rib cage back. You can gradually let these circles become bigger. And if you are sitting on your ankles, you can notice how you're kind of massaging out the front of the ankles. And if you're sitting on your seat, you can notice how this is massaging your sit bones. And just paying attention to what is actually making contact with the floor as it makes contact with the floor. And go 2 more times in whatever direction you're moving in. And then we can switch directions. Big circles the other way. Bringing some movement into the shoulders and the chest as well, maybe. Maybe even adding the neck into some. Just keeping this linked with your breath. 2 more times in this direction. And then gradually let your torso come back to center. You can bring your hands to your shoulders and draw nice big circles going forward with your elbows. Go about 5 times in each direction. But you can actually feel if there's any like pops or creaks in the shoulders. There might be quite a bit, or maybe not so much. You can switch directions once you've gone about 5 times. And then once you're all warm in the shoulders, you can release the arms, shake them out. Maybe just shake out the shoulders a little bit too. And then we'll start to gently warm up the neck. We're going to do more stuff with the neck once we stand up. But just for now, just take a few half circles with the neck. And if it feels okay in your neck to do full circles, to bring it back, then go ahead and do that. But if you get any sort of pinching sensation in your neck, then just stick with the half circles. And as always, you can move as quickly or as slowly as you'd like. But I do encourage you to move just a tiny bit slower than what your first instinct is. Just to challenge yourself to feel into the pose a little more. Awesome. And then let's just meet with our chin down at the chest. And keep your spine really straight here. So remember, or remind your tailbone to tuck down. And really just feel the space from your tailbone through the entire spine and the back of the neck. Let your head become a little bit heavier for 2 more breaths. Relax the jaw, relax the forehead. Awesome. And then interlace your hands, bring them behind the head. Open up your elbows out to the sides and push the back of your head into your hands as you start to open up the chest, open up the throat, using your hands as a cradle for the neck. And then as you release, you can release the hands to the mat and come into your tabletop position. Your ankles might be a little sore, so you can tap out the tops of the feet. And then just to counter what how the ankles just were, you can tuck your toes under and start to slowly walk your hands back to your seat so that you're sitting on your heels, but your toes are tucked under. You can see that. Called toes pose. And this might feel really intense, but try to get every one of your toes to be on the mat. And you can even come into a squat for a moment to get those pinky toes on, and then slowly bring the knees back down. And this is just a really great stretch for the soles of your feet. And eventually coming up to an upright position, but keeping those toes tucked under. And if it's too intense, you can lean forward a little bit. If it gets really intense, you can come out of it early, but just try to hold this for 5 more breaths. Try to really relax everything in the body as you do this. Breathe into the soles of the feet. 1 more breath. You can do it. Okay, and then come forward, point the toes, sit back on the heels, and just get that counter stretch. Maybe lift the knees. And then come back into your tabletop. You can tap out the tops of the feet and just relax. You can start moving into your cat-cows as you feel ready. Just checking in with your alignment. Everyone looks good. The wrist creases parallel to the front edge of your mat, and spreading your fingers so wide that you feel the skin in between the fingers stretching. Just challenging yourself to be a little bit bigger than normal. And you can always play around with where your movement is originating from, but first tuning in with where your movement naturally originates from. So maybe your body will typically move with your hips first. Maybe your tailbone reaches up and then your tailbone tucks down, and that's what guides the movement. Or maybe your heart melts down and forward, and then your heart curls back and up. Or maybe your navel comes down to the floor in your cow and then pulls up to the spine in your cat. Just playing around with that idea of where your movement is originating from. And then doing some freestyle. You can take some big circles with the torso. You can really just close the eyes and do whatever your body wants to do. And maybe your body just wants to stick with the cat-cows. That's okay too. Maybe you want to wag the tail, roll out the shoulders, come to child's pose. Just let this be your time to do what your body wants to do. And just being sure to keep everything linked with your breath. Awesome. Just taking 3 more breaths, moving how you like. And then leaning back in the center in our tabletop when you're ready. And we'll just counter the wrists real quick. So you can turn onto the backs of your hands, but your fingertips pointing toward the knees. So your palms are facing up toward you and your thumbs, perfect. And then just start to slowly sit your hips down as far as you can before your wrists come off the mat. So if you're coming back and your wrists are off, just come back to, so it might not be moving that far at all, but you're just getting deep into your forearms. Really breathe into the forearms. 2 more breaths. Relax the shoulders and the face. Perfect. And then you can come back to center, maybe shake out the wrists for a moment, and then we'll come into our downward facing dog. Tuck the toes under, lift the hips back and up. So you can just take a peek at your hands and make sure they're pretty much the same as your tabletop. Fingers are really spreading as wide as they possibly can, and they're shoulder width distance. Your feet are about hips width distance, or 2 fists. And you can keep the knees as bent as you need to bend them, and just lift your sit bones up as high as they possibly can go. And then feel as if your armpits are facing toward each other. So feeling that wrapping of the shoulder blades, perfect. Relaxing the face and the neck. Taking big exhales. And then slowly start to step your feet up about a foot's distance and then bring them as wide as your mat. So you're coming into a short and wide down dog stance. And remind yourself of the same things, keeping the sit bones lifting high. And then shift your weight into your left hand and grab hold of your left ankle with your right hand. And you can put a bend in your right elbows to kind of pull yourself closer and look underneath your left armpit. Perfect. And try to keep your hips square to the mat too. So you might feel like the weight shifts toward your left hip, and just bring it back to center. Awesome. And then you can release that hand and switch sides. So shifting weight into the right hand, grabbing the right ankle with left hand, and doing your best to keep your legs in a neutral position as you do this, stretching more into the shoulders. Awesome. And then you can release, come back to center, and just keep walking your feet up to meet your hands, and we'll come into our forward fold position. Feet are 2 fists distance apart. You can bend your knees quite generously. Just allow your head to dangle yes and no. And in our forward folds, we always want to think about going forward first and then down. So feel the weight shifting more toward the balls of the feet, almost as if you could slide a little piece of paper underneath the heels. And lifting your sit bones as high as they can, even though the knees are bent. Just encouraging that length in the backs of the legs, even when the knees are bent. Awesome. Relax the shoulders, relax the face. Draw the navel up toward the spine so that you feel even more length in your lower back. Take 2 more big exhales and see how deeply you can surrender here. And then slowly, as you feel ready, you can start to roll your body up to stand, maybe walking the hands up the legs, 1 vertebrae at a time, coming into your mountain pose. Roll the shoulders back, bring the palms to face out, and stand tall in your mountain. Allow the blood to settle. Same thing as when we were seated, lifting up through the crown of the head with your inhales and grounding down through the soles of the feet on your exhales. Draw your inner thighs in and up toward each other, activating the legs. Feel the weight pretty evenly distributed on the feet. And we're going to do another really nice neck stretch So when you're ready, you can bring your left hand or your right hand to the left ear and start to just stretch out the neck, reaching down and away with the left fingertips, feeling the space from the fingers through the ear. And then start to reach your hand back behind you and walk the fingertips a little bit closer to the top of your head and bring your nose in line with your right knee. You're kind of looking down at your right toes. And then your left hand is reaching more behind you. It's still away, but behind and away. So you're really feeling that down the shoulder blade. And take another breath here. And then gently release your hand. You can push your head back up to center, and we'll go to the other side. So you can bring your left hand to the right ear and just getting more into the side of the neck to start. So you can feel the space from the right ear through the fingertips, breathing into that space, getting that a little longer each exhale. And then same thing, you can start to reach the hand behind you more and then walk the hand a little closer to the crown of the head as you bring your nose in line with your left knee, looking down toward the left toes. This really, at least in my body, this targets this area that gets really tense and knotty when I spend time at the computer, like the shoulders and the neck. It's kind of where they connect. Another big breath. And then when you feel even, you can gently release the head, push it back up to center, and interlace the hands. Inhale, bring the palms of your hands to face up toward the ceiling. Get really long in the sides of the body. Feel the space from your hips and your ribs separating. And keep encouraging your tailbone to tuck down so you get more length in the lower back. So you inhale, reach up a little higher, and exhale, bend over to the right side. Feel the space from the outside edge of your left foot through the fingertips. Maybe you look up toward the ceiling just a touch. And then inhale back to center. Switch the interlacing of your hands so it feels a little funky. And reach back up. As you inhale, bring your shoulders up toward the ears. And as you exhale, let them be neutral. And inhale, reach. Exhale, bend to the left. Feeling this from the outside of your right foot through the hands, maybe gazing up toward the ceiling ever so slightly. Stretching out the abs and the organs. Awesome. Inhale, come back to center, reach up one more time, maybe a slight back bend. And then exhale, release the hands, dive forward, leading with your heart, coming into your forward fold. Perfect. Inhale, halfway lift, really long spine, tabletop in the spine. Beautiful. Exhale and release. Plant the hands, leave your right foot where it is, and step your left foot back into your warrior one. Rise on up, warrior one pose. So your back toes are about 45-degree angle. Feet are as wide as you need to be for your hips to be completely square to the front of your mat. So you can imagine the headlights on your hip bones. See that they're creating a straight lane in front of you. So scissoring the inner thighs in toward each other. Maybe lifting the toes, activating the four corners of the feet. Hands can be wherever they're comfortable. Maybe on the hips, maybe reaching straight up for more length. Wherever you are, keep your tailbone really tucking down so that you feel the stretch deeper in the left hip flexor. Keep your front knee over the front ankle. Front leg is really strong. And root down even in the outside edge of your back foot. Maybe tucking the ribs in just slightly to encourage more length in the back. Another breath to reach. And then as you exhale, you can straighten out your front leg and hinge at your hips just like in a forward fold, coming forward with your straight back into pyramid pose. So you can put the hands wherever they're comfortable. They can stay on the hips. It can come down to frame your front foot. They can come to blocks, wherever is comfortable. Always option to adjust your stance once you arrive. but doing your best to lead with your heart. So I like to imagine that there's a string connecting my heart to my big toe. And each time that I exhale, the string gets a little bit shorter. You hinge a little deeper. Keep pulling your right hip back. And the left hip forward, perfect. One more breath, inhale and exhale. And then you can plant the hands down and put a slight bend in your front leg and step your left foot up to meet your right in your forward fold. Inhale, half lift, long spine, reset. And exhale, release. Awesome. Inhale, root to rise, reach all the way out and up. Exhale, dive back forward to your forward fold. Inhale, long spine, reset. Exhale, release. Leave your left foot where it is, and we'll step the right foot back into warrior one. And rise up when you're ready. So you can notice right away the difference in the sides, and just doing what you need to do on this side to get your alignment to be correct. So 4 corners of both feet are firm on the mat. If the outside edge of your back foot is lifted at all, step it in or step it wider. And your hips completely square to the front of your mat. Front heels over that front ankle. The feet are actively reaching into the mat. Tailbone is actively reaching down as the crown of your head actively reaches straight up. Arms can be wherever they were on the other side. Breathing. Feeling the ribs gently tuck in as the tailbone tucks down a little bit more. Really just encouraging as much length as possible in your spine and deepening that stretch in your right hip flexor. One more breath. And then you can slowly straighten out your front leg. Bring your hands to your hips and lead with your heart coming into your pyramid pose on this side. Awesome. So continually pulling your left hip back and right hip forward. And you can even bring your hands to your sacrum just to really feel that this is you could rest a glass of water here. Let it be as flat as possible. And you're using your core to hold you here if the hands are on the hips, or you can bring them down to frame the foot, always an option. But root down a little bit more in the ball of your foot and notice how that changes how it feels in your hamstring ever so slightly. Another breath. Awesome. Now this time put a slight bend in your front foot, plant your hands around that foot, and step your left foot back to meet your right in a plank position. Always an option to have the knees down. And then when you're ready, you can move through your vinyasa flow. You can lower all the way down, take your baby cobra. You can lower halfway, chaturanga into up dog, whatever is good for you right now. And we'll meet in our down dogs. Let 3 big exhales out, sigh it out. And one more. Awesome. As you inhale, raise your right leg back and up. Keeping the hips square to the mat, lifting from the core, perfect. And then exhale, bend the knee into the chest, shift your shoulders over wrists, and place the foot at the top of your mat. You can step your left foot up into warrior one legs, and we'll rise up, warrior one. Take one breath here. Inhale to get your spine long. And then as you exhale, straighten your leg as you hinge forward into pyramid. Take one breath here. Release. And then bring your hands down to frame your front foot. Step your left toes back, coming into this low lunge position. And then allow your back knee to drop. Untuck the toes, coming into our low lunge. Just gonna get a little deeper into the hip flexor and the neck here. So try to relax your head completely. And notice how that really intensifies the stretch in your hip flexor. you just completely curl it so that almost that the crown of your head is pointing straight down to the mat. It's really interesting how that works. I don't know why. One more breath. Okay, and then lift your sit bones back and up and straighten out your front leg. Hinge over your right hamstring. Do a breath here. Awesome. Then bring the sole of your right foot back to the ground. Tuck your back toes, lift your back knee, and slowly start to transition into your standing split. So you can bring your hands to the ground in front of the foot and slowly lift your back toes off of the mat. And it's okay if your toes are even lifted like an inch off of the mat. Just you want to keep your back leg as straight as possible and your hips square to the mat. One more breath. Perfect. And then slowly, slowly lower your back leg back into your low lunge or into your lunge. Plant the hands, step back to plank. Move through your vinyasa and we'll meet in our down dog. Just letting it go when you arrive. No rush at all. And as you're ready, we will move through that same flow on the other side. So inhale, lift your left leg back and up. Leave it here for a moment. Just really feel the space from your fingertips through your left toes. And then bend your knee into the chest, shift your weight forward, and place the foot at the top of your mat. Step your back foot into warrior one legs, and inhale, rise up, warrior one. Check in with the breath, stay with your breath. Inhale to reach. Then exhale to straighten your front leg and dive forward, pyramid. Take a full breath here. And then plant the hands down around your front foot. Step your right toes back a little more and come into that low lunge, letting the back knee drop down, untucking the toes, and fully surrender the head. So you're getting into your neck here, you're getting deep into the hip flexor. Breathing. Awesome. And then next inhale, lift your sit bones back and up as you straighten out your front leg and fold over your left hamstring. The sole of your foot can stay on the ground if that feels good, or you can lift the toes off so you're just on the heel. Whatever makes more sense for you. Another breath. Awesome. And then rebend your front leg, bring the sole of the foot to the ground, tuck your back toes, lift the back knee, and slowly shift the weight forward into your standing split on this side. So just keeping your hips as square as possible, keeping your back leg as straight as possible, letting yourself reach those toes a little bit higher with each exhale. Awesome. Another breath. And then slowly and with control, you can start to lower your back toes onto the mat and step back to your plank. Move through a flow and we'll meet in our down dogs. Maybe fluttering the lips when you arrive, maybe letting out a big sigh. And then bend the knees, look up toward the top of your mat and step your feet up. Halfway lift as you inhale. And exhale to your forward fold. Inhale, rise yourself up to stand. And exhale, hands to heart center. Take a moment to pause here. Let the blood settle. Feel your breath and feel the sweat. Feel the heartbeat. Relax the forehead, jaw. Remind yourself why you showed up today. We'll move through another flow on either side before we start to really cool down. So when you're ready, you can reach both arms up, get really nice and long, maybe a slight back bend. And exhale, dive forward into your forward fold. Inhale, long spine, reset in your halfway lift. And exhale, release. Plant your hands, step back to your plank, move through your vinyasa, and we'll meet in our down dogs. Now on your next inhale, raise your right leg back and up. And exhale to point the toes, stack the hips, and bend the knees. So just opening up your hips toward your right. And trying to square your shoulders back off to the mat. And then inhale, level out the hips, reach your leg long. And exhale, bend the knee into the chest and step it to the top of your mat. Allow your back knee to drop down into our low lunge. You can untuck the toes or tuck them, whatever feels better. And relax the head for 3 breaths. Get deep into the hip flexor, deep into the neck. Breathe into the hips. And then you can lift the sit bones back and up. We'll come back into the hamstring stretch, lifting the toes maybe off the mat, folding over the right hamstring. Another breath here. And then just heel toe your foot probably 1 time, just so that's on the right edge of your mat. Bring your hands to the inside of the foot, re-bend your right leg and sink the hips forward and down into your lizard pose. So you can stay lifted and keep the heart really proud and keep the hips sinking down. That can feel really good. You can also come onto the forearms if that feels good. There's no better way to have the upper body here, just whatever feels the best in your hips right now. You can even add a twist in if you'd like. So bringing your right hand to the inside of your right thigh, kind of pushing into that and looking over the right shoulder. Some people like to roll to the outside edge of the right foot when you do that. There's a lot of options here. So breathe into whichever pose you're in for 3 more breaths. And then super slowly, you can start to lift your hips back and up. You can envision there's a string pulling you up, straighten out the front leg. And now heel toe your right foot all the way to the left side of the mat, and we'll come into our pigeon pose. You can bring the hands down, bend the knee, bring that behind the right wrist, sit the hips down. And you can stay lifted here for a moment or even for the whole stretch, or come onto the forearms. But if you do come forward, make sure that you're walking yourself forward first and then down. So you want to encourage as much length as possible in the spine. Looks perfect. Let's take 5 breaths here. Really release, really let it go. And then you can start to come back onto the hands. Tuck your back toes under, scooch that knee in a touch, and bring your right foot back, maybe shake out the leg in a tabletop or in a 3-legged dog. And then when you're ready, we'll meet in our down dogs. On your next inhale, raise your left leg back and up. And exhale to point the toes, stack the hips, bend the knee, really open them up to the left this time. Perfect. Letting your left leg actively reach up. And then inhale as you level out the hips, reach it long. And exhale, knee comes into chest, shift the weight forward, coming into your low lunge on the other side. So you can let your right knee drop down, untuck the toes, And take 3 breaths with your head relaxed. You're just really feeling into the hip flexor. Making really big exhales. Great. And then start to lift the sit bones back and up, straighten out the left leg. And pause for a moment or two over the left hamstring. Perfect. And then you can heel toe your left foot probably just one time. So that comes to the left edge of the mat. Hands are inside of the left foot. Bring your hips forward and down into lizard pose on the other side. So same options here. You can really encourage your hips to be heavy, sinking down as the heart lifts up. Just stick with what you did on the other side. So maybe taking that twist. If you are twisting, feeling that you're pushing your thigh away from the heart. So your heart is lifting up toward the ceiling a bit more, and your thigh is pushing down and away. Perfect. Let's take 2 more breaths right where you are. And then slowly you can start to come out of this. Just you can envision a string at your tailbone, lifting them back, and straighten out the leg and heel toe that off to the right side of your mat. And we'll come into pigeon. You can bring your left knee behind the left wrist, sink the hips down, maybe stay lifted, and then walking yourself forward first and then down if you are coming down. Perfect. Letting your hips become a little bit heavier each time you exhale. 3 more big exhales here. And really slowly, as you feel ready and even, come back onto your hands. Tuck the toes under, scooch that knee in a touch, and come back into your 3-legged table. Shake out that leg. And then you can move through one final vinyasa flow if you would like. And we'll meet in our down dogs when you're ready. And slowly start to let your knees come to the mat. Untuck your toes and sit the hips on the heels. Come into your child's pose. This can be any version of a child's pose. Maybe the toes are together and the knees are together. Maybe the arms reaching forward. Maybe the hands stacked under the head. Or maybe the knees are wide, getting into the hips. Whichever version of this pose you're in, just be there fully for the next few rounds of breaths. Letting the shoulders soften completely. Letting the lips and the jaw surrender. Maybe gently rocking your head side to side, massaging the forehead against the mat or your hands. And then if your right arm isn't reaching forward, you can reach that arm forward and then bring your left palm facing up underneath the right arm, coming into a twisted child's pose. Like a thread the needle kind of thing with the arms. Yeah. So the top left side of the head is resting on the ground And you can keep this right arm reaching forward, or you can bring it back behind your back. Another breath here. And then you can reach the right arm back forward, unwind, come back to center, and then we'll switch sides. Bring the right palm facing up underneath the left arm and the right side of the head to the ground. Maybe keeping that arm reaching forward for a few moments and maybe reaching it back behind you if you did that on the other side. Let the belly be soft here. Let the face be soft. Another breath here. And you can unwind, come back to center, walk the fingertips forward as far as they possibly can go. Feeling that nice length you're getting. And then just walk the hands back towards your seat. Shift your weight to either side of your toes and bring the legs out in front of you. You can reach the feet forward, shake them out, maybe pat down the hips. And we'll do another few hip stretches before we come onto our backs. So we'll come into our double pigeon. So when you're ready, you can bring the left shin parallel to the front edge of your mat and keep your foot really, really flexed. This will protect your knee. And then bring the same kind of shape with your right leg and bring the ankle over the knee. So your foot should be able to rotate when it's off the knee. That's kind of this shape. Yeah. And this might feel really, really intense. If this feels like awful, you can straighten out your bottom leg and you just stretch into the top leg. This is called square pose or full pigeon or double pigeon. There's a lot of names for this one. So really just breathe into your hips. Maybe bring your hands there. And see with each exhale if your right knee can come a little bit further down toward your left ankle. This can feel really, really intense. Just understanding that and letting it happen, letting your breath bring you deeper. Maybe starting to walk the hands in front of the shins. I'm just going to be here 3 more breaths, so you can stay up tall or start to hinge a little bit more. Okay, and then now start to bring your knees to stack on top of each other. So we'll come into our shoelace pose. So you can heel toe your feet to the opposite sides of the mat. Yeah, and if this is really intense, you can bring your feet in so that they're beside your hips. That can take off the pressure a little bit. And then if you want to go deeper, you bring your feet forward a bit more. So this gets into a little bit of a different spot in the hips. And you might be fine staying lifted, so it might feel better for you to walk forward and start to hinge down more at the hips. Just notice where you're feeling this. It's in this pretty funky spot, like in the hips and the glutes area. And doing your best to keep both of your sit bones on the ground. So if you are hinging forward and your right glute starts to come up, just push push away from the floor so that you ground your hips back down. And again, if this is too intense, you can always straighten out the bottom leg. Let's take 2 more breaths. Awesome. And then start to walk your hands back, bring them behind you, and just straighten out the legs. You can reach them forward, shake them out, maybe windshield wiper the hips or the knees. And then we'll do that on the other side. So you can bring the right shin parallel to the front edge of your mat, just keeping that foot really flexed, and then stacking the left shin on top of it. Oh, fire logs. That's another name for this pose. It's kind of like fire logs are stacking. So your ankle bone should be on top of the knee, just a little bit closer to the hips. And you should be able to like rotate your foot here. You don't want it to be, you don't want your foot to be on the thigh. And one side usually feels a lot different than the other. And really just breathing into the hips, breathing into the intensity of this pose. And this can be really, really uncomfortable, and the mind can want to distract you away from what's going on in your hips. So challenge yourself to bring all of your attention into the hips instead, and sit so fully in that discomfort that you can start to accept it and release and surrender. Maybe bringing the hands in front of the shins for a few moments if you did that on the other side. A lot of deep emotions are stored in these areas in the hips, so don't be surprised if any emotions come up or different thoughts, either now or later today. Just let it go. One more big breath. And you can bring the hands back up if you left, and we'll come into shoelace. So just scooching your left foot to the right of you, bringing your knees to stack on top of each other. And then you can bring the hips in, or the feet in tight to your hips to ease off a little bit. And if you want to get deeper, then you bring the feet out more in line with the knees. So same thing over here, just making sure both sit bones stay grounded. Noticing where you're feeling this. And then gradually starting to walk the hands forward if you're feeling like there's space for that. And yeah, I see you're doing that, Mom. It's always nice to sit on something too, if this gets like too intense, to give yourself a little elevation. Let's take 5 more really big breaths. All your attention resting in the hips. And seeing with each exhale if you can close the eyes and actually see the muscles surrendering. Actually see the muscles accepting this pose that we're in. And one more big breath. And then slowly start to bring the hands back, come back behind you, shift the weight back and straighten out the legs, slowly unwinding. And do whatever you need to reset. You can shake them out. You can do windshield wipers again. Or just have stillness. Awesome. So you can bring the knees back up to center as you're ready. Feet about hips width distance, and slowly walk the hands down on the thighs. Bring yourself down to your back. You can hug the knees in toward the chest when you arrive, and maybe rock a few times or take some circles with the knees. Just massaging your lower back against the mat. Awesome. And bring the soles of your feet back down to the ground. You can shift your hips off to the right and let both of your knees fall to the left into this reclined twist. Always option to do other versions of the twist. So if you want to straighten out your bottom leg, you can do that. If you want to wrap the legs around each other, you can do that. Or just stay with the knees stacked. Relax your left shoulder. Relax your right shoulder. Relax your right foot and relax your left foot. You can let your gaze come off over the right shoulder and relax your head into the mat. Relax your belly. Each inhale rises the belly, and each exhale lets the stomach fall and empty. Just feel this wringing out of your spine. Feel this massaging of the organs in your stomach. Two more breaths. And slowly, when you're ready, you can bring your head to center, bring the knees to center, and then the hips. Let's pause for a moment in the center, just notice the difference. And then we'll switch sides, so you can shift your hips off to the left and let your knees fall to the right. And doing what you did on the other side, so maybe straightening the bottom leg or wrapping the thighs around each other. And relax your right hip and glutes. Relax the right shoulder and the left shoulder. And you don't have to hold yourself into this pose at all. See how much you can let go. See all the muscles you can release. And just allow gravity to take you deeper into the pose. Letting both of your glutes be totally soft. Both of your feet are relaxed. Your thighs are relaxed. Your stomach and your shoulders completely relaxed. The head is gazing off to the left and resting deeper into the mat with each one of your exhales. The jaw is completely heavy. The lips are soft. And the forehead is completely relaxed. And take about 2 more breaths here. And then gently guide your head back to center, followed by the knees, and followed by the hips. And maybe take a few windshield wipers with your knees, and just massaging your glutes against the mat, releasing the back. When you're ready, you can bring both of your feet to reach up toward the ceiling. Maybe shake them out for a moment and just encourage the muscles to completely relax. And then reaching your arms up to do the same. And seeing how still you can get here. Seeing how much you can release in the limbs so that you let your torso be as heavy as possible, rooting into the mat. Feel the entire width of your back and the entire length of your back completely grounded into the mat. Feel all of your organs settling to the back body. Feel your brain settle to the back of the skull. Allow anything negative and any toxins within the body, envision them leaving your body through the soles of your feet and through the palms of the hands. And as that happens, envision all the positive and healing benefits from this practice soaking into the body, entering in through the soles of the feet and palms of the hands, coming down the legs, coming down the arms, into the shoulders and hips, and spreading throughout the torso. A few more moments here. When you're ready, you can come into your happy baby, grabbing the toes, the ankles, the knees, or the thighs, maybe resting in stillness or maybe rocking. And then as you feel ready, you can bring the soles of the feet together and slowly lower outside edges of the feet to find the mat in your reclined bound angle pose. Welcome to stay here as long as you'd like. This can be your final shavasana if you'd like, or you can straighten out the legs at any time and come into your final resting pose. In whatever position you are, just encouraging your lower back to come closer to the mat. Releasing any control you had over the breath, allowing the body to breathe itself. Allow every cell of your body to rest closer into the mat, surrendering deeply. Allowing every muscle in your body to completely relax so that the blood and energy can flow freely. Allowing yourself to rest here for a few minutes. If you'd like to stay longer in this pose, please feel free to do so. And if you're starting to feel ready to come out of this and move on to the rest of your day, just allow my cues to gently guide you out of this. First off, noticing your breath once again, noticing how slow and gentle it has become. And notice how once you bring attention to the breath, it'll automatically deepen, and then deepening the breath even more. Calling air back into the body, feeling every corner of your body fill up with air. Wiggling the fingers and the toes, maybe rocking the head side to side. Reaching the arms overhead for a nice morning stretch if you would like, maybe letting out a big yawn. You can bring the knees toward the chest and find your way into a fetal position when you're ready. Mm. And as you feel ready, leaving the eyes closed just for now, you can slowly make your way up to your seat, meeting with our hands at heart center when you arrive. Just sealing our practice today, fully and deeply thanking yourself for showing up and for this pure act of self-love and self-care. May this continue to heal you throughout the rest of your day and weekend, and may you bring some of this love and light to everything you do and everyone that you see. Namaste.